but help yourself to some snacks if you like. And then in the back we have some great material that has been prepared by some of our presenters and others regarding the issue we're going to talk about today, worker freedom. So we're really happy to have some experts with us from the lower 48. We know a lot of things here in Alaska, but we also recognize there are a lot of experts that we can call upon their knowledge to come here and speak to us about some things. So today we're going to talk about worker freedom, which is simply the choice for individuals to decide whether or not they want to join a union. And we have with us somebody who has really changed the landscape of all that, Mark Janus. So Mark is was originally a worker for the state of Illinois, and he'll tell you a little bit about his story, but basically he signed on to a pretty big case that changed the nature of whether or not people have to join unions if they work for government. So this is primarily what we're going to be talking about is government worker unions, but it is the case that we're going to be able to dig a little bit into some private sector union issues as well. So, so Mark, if you want to come on up, and then we're also going to have, actually we're going to show a video about Mark. Let's show a video about you first.
Oh, okay. Again?
Again, yeah. Well, you've seen it, but everyone else hasn't seen it. So we'll show a video about you. And then in addition to Mark coming up, we're also going to have Vinnie Vernuccio come up. So Vinnie is a labor attorney from, he lives in DC right now, but he's been all over the place. He works for the Mackinac Center out of Michigan, and he's with Workers for Opportunity, which works on state labor issues. And he also is the president of the Institute for the American Worker, which works on federal labor issues. So he can talk to you about any kind of labor issues that you want to. All right. Well,
I'm Mark Janus. I live in Springfield, Illinois. I work for the Department of Health Care and Family Services, and I'm the lead plaintiff in Janus versus AFSCME. You know, I would say I'm just an average guy. I'm a middle-class person that goes to work every day, enjoys my activities, got my kids that I love dearly, and I would like to see the state come back and be the powerhouse that it could be and that it used to be. Quite frankly, I don't think it's really sunk in quite yet. The ramifications of this case, everybody tells me it has national implications, but I don't look at it that way. I just look at it as an average guy kind of standing up for his own rights of free speech. Yes, it'll have national repercussions, but I don't look at it that I'm anybody special or anybody extraordinary. I work for Healthcare and Family Services, and I'm forced to pay money to a union that then supports political causes that I don't agree with. I learned about public service when I got into the scouting as a Cub Scout and moved my way through all the way up to Eagle Scout. And it teaches you self-reliance, but it also teaches you that you have to become a part of the community. And you have to try to better yourself and better the community as you go along and perform public service. I'd kind of like to have my money go, instead of going to the union and their causes, go more towards more civic help, such as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. And there's so many causes that need help and assistance all across the state. We cannot continue down this path because it's not helping.
all right. So no further ado, Mark Janus and Vinnie Vernuccio, and Sean Noble is here from Arizona, and he's going to moderate this first discussion. So come on up.
Yeah. I'm going to stand if that's all right. Yeah, we'll
stand.
Sure. You have to excuse me, I got a little bit of a sinus thing going on. I'm from Florida. I now live in Florida. So coming up here from, where it's a lot cooler, it's running my sinuses a little bit different. No, the reason I got involved in this case was that when I went to work for the state of Illinois, go through the usual intake, which is, you sign all your tax documents for withholding, et cetera, et cetera. And when I got all through all the paperwork, there was absolutely nothing said about a union. There was nothing said all the usual stuff. And there was this line item called union dues. And I'm going like, back the truck up. Where I never signed up for the union, why am I paying union dues? Well, I found out that the state of Illinois legislature had in cahoots with the AFSCME and the other public sector unions. They had mandated that you have to pay an agency fee, which was approximately 80% of full membership. And they touted it as a need to cover wages and benefit contract negotiations. Well, as time went on, I found out that they really didn't spend that much on wages and benefits. Out of every dollar, they only really spent about 25 cents. And the balance of it would then go to national efforts in policy and politics, which I totally disagree with. For example, they were advocating for an increase in the income tax in Illinois. We have a state income tax. And I didn't understand that because your rank and file state employee, if they increase taxes, is going to have to pay for that income tax increase. So why would you want to increase the burden on your own membership? Well, I soon realized that the reason they were doing it was for their own altruistic interest, meaning that if they got more money into the state budget, they could expand programs. You expand programs, you get more state workers. You get more state workers, you get more dues paid. Go figure. So a number of years went by, things kept getting worse and worse and worse, and they kept advocating for things that I just totally disagreed with. For example, they endorsed candidates without even a vote of the rank and file. Because I was not a union member, I wasn't allowed to go to meetings, but I heard from the members that did go to the meetings, and nothing was ever said like, who would you like us to endorse for candidacy? And it was basically your administrative or your president of the union and the local and so on that said, we're going to endorse this candidate. So I thought, well, that's kind of one-sided. That's almost like a dictatorship. In other words, this is who you need to vote for because this is who we endorse. Well, I found the more disgruntled I get, a friend of mine who really knew that I wasn't happy put me in contact with Illinois Policy and the president of Illinois Policy at the time, Christina Rasmussen. And we met, and she said, I think we have a court case, and I think we can help you. And I said, sounds great, let's get into this, let's see what we can do. So after some further discussions, they filed a case with me as the plaintiff and two other people. We went to the federal district court in Chicago, and we promptly lost. And I'm thinking, oh, well, this is not going very well. And they said, oh, no, that's great, because now we can take it to the appellate level, one step up. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Well, at the appellate level, we also lost. But in the intervening time, one of the plaintiffs dropped out for a reason which I have no idea why. I can only assume that it's probably because she got a lot of pushback from the union and was scared, because that's what they do if you don't do something that they like. And another gentleman that was also on the case, the court threw him out for the simple reason that he had already made some arrangements with the Teamsters Union, which he was a member of. And they said, look, he's already gotten his satisfaction, so he's no longer a plaintiff. Well, that left me as the sole plaintiff in the case. Well, when we lost at the appellate level, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is really going well, right? And they said, oh, no, this is great, because now we can go to the Supreme Court. And I said, what? They said, yeah, we're going to go to Washington, try to get the Supreme Court to hear your case. And, of course, that was like way over the top. I mean, that's way above my pay grade. And they filed the paperwork, and we had, I would say, between 40 and 50 different friend of the court briefs that said they agreed with my stance and my case and in my support. So the court actually took the case and they agreed to hear it. Well, right now that's major because they only take about 3% of all the cases that people apply for to be heard. So it was a late February, colder than the son of a gun in Washington. We're in the courtroom, and a lot of dignitaries like Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, Governor Browner, and a bunch of other people. And it just kind of was, quite frankly, overwhelming. And when Justice Roberts calls the case, I mean, it's extremely humbling to hear your name called by the Chief Justice of the United States. So the oral arguments were made. A little hard to understand from a layman's perspective as to which way it was going to go. But my attorneys felt that it was, positive. And so then it was just a waiting game to find out when they were going to make their decision. And the decision finally was made on June 27th, the very last day the court was in session, and it was in our favor. Justice Roberts called the case and said, Justice Alito is going to now read the affirmative opinion. And we knew right then that we had won. And quite a bit of elation, but we had to be very quiet, very solemn, obviously. And the more he read and provided his affirmative position on the case, which became the decision, we actually got more than what we asked for. And by that I mean it not only stopped public sector people from having to pay the agency fee, but it also said that under your First Amendment rights, which is freedom of speech and freedom of association, you do not have to join a union in order to hold a job, which was part of my case from the standpoint that the day I joined the state of Illinois, in order to hold my job at the state, I had to pay the union. That to me just did not make sense, but that's the way it was. So from there it was, the decision's been made, and I'm thinking, okay, great. Now I can go back to work, everything's fine, except the union started crafting me as anti-union. They started crafting me as the devil and all kinds of other things. I was going to put them out of business, et cetera, which is not true. I'm not anti-union, never have been. All I'm saying is an individual worker should have the choice and the voice to make their own decision. That's all the decision was. If you want to join the union and become a member, that's fine with me. That's your choice. If you don't want to pay the union, you don't want to be a member, that should be your choice too. I mean, it's almost as simple as whether you buy a Ford or a Chevy. I mean, it's, that's your choice. And so ever since that time, I've been traveling all around the country, listening to people that have had difficulties with their union and have been trying to spread the words that they now have a choice. And because I will tell you right now, unions don't offer that information. The day of the decision, the state of California signed a law that said if you as an employee go to a supervisor and ask about the Janus decision, that supervisor cannot talk to you. He says he must tell you to go talk to your union. Well, how well do you think that's going to be? Do you think they're going to give you the true scoop? Do you think they're going to say, oh yeah, you don't have to join? Not happening. The other thing that I learned very quickly is that unions do a great job of trying to thwart people to leave by a lot of different means, and that's about another hour's worth of discussion. But the bottom line that I look at is if you have an organization that is truly benevolent and is is looking out for their membership, then why do they have to go to the extent that they do to keep people in? Like a 2-week window is the only time you can get out. Why do they also, accept a letter, but then don't act on it when you do want to get out? And I could go on and on about all the ways that they keep people from being able to get out of the union. And my opinion is, being a businessman for many, many years, because I had my own business, I'm thinking if the unions really want to do what they say they want to do, they need to change their business model. However, they continue to go down the same path. they continue to promote ideas, policies, and politics that there is, quite frankly, a lot of people that don't agree with. And that's rank and file members. And the bottom line is, you know, it's strictly a choice. That's all it is. Do what you want, like we do in our everyday lives.
Thank you, Mark. So my name is Sean Noble. I have been a part of this effort, not as long as Mark has. Well, maybe as long, because we've been doing...
You're about 2 weeks short.
Right. So I work with the Mackinac Institute, or Mackinac Center in Michigan. I'm based in Arizona, but we do work all over the country. And one of the things we knew as a result of Mark's case was that as soon as the decision came down, assuming it came down the way we expected it, which it did, that we would want to immediately begin to educate union members on their rights. And because California, we knew, was teeing up to try to make that as challenging as possible, we used California as our template, as far as the place where we were going to go first, to really try to help educate people, because we knew that that would be the one place that people would not get information from anybody close to them, in the sense of the unions were not going to be talking about it. And we also knew that if there were places that were more conservative, that there would be a lot of discussion and just kind of in the general public policy realm that people would pick up on, and people would learn that they could opt out of their unions. So we started doing an effort to actually educate people on what their rights were. But before I get into how that went and how that's going and what you guys can do here, I wanted to ask Vinnie, what was the result of Mark's, Mark case wins, everyone's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Now what? We caught the bus.
Absolutely. And by the way, it's great to hear you. Bethany, thanks again. Great time yesterday. I'm glad you all were able to come out. I think we met a couple of you before, a couple of years ago. So it's great to be, and by the way, I don't know if it's rude to take out our cell phones and tell you what the temperature is back home for all of us. But very, very grateful to be here from Virginia right now. Kidding aside. So Mark's case. So essentially what the Supreme Court said in the Janus versus Aspen case is that everything that government unions do is political. So just think about it. So not just candidate giving, not ballot proposals, not some of the weird issues that they may advocate for, but just straight negotiation. They negotiate for salaries. What is that? That's taxpayer dollars. That's your dollars and mine. Let's say teachers are negotiating when they come to work. Well, what is it? That's the school day. That's public policy. So the heart of the decision that Mark won is that the Supreme Court said that everything that government unions do is political. Because just run-of-the-mill negotiations, that's public policy, that's taxpayers, that's spending. And because it's political, that public employees like Mark have a First Amendment right to choose to support that politics or not. And essentially, it brought right to work to the entire country. And if you don't know what right to work is, right to work simply means that a union can't get a worker fired for not paying them. And now 26 states have that right. Unfortunately, Michigan had it, just lost it. It's another sore subject that I'm not going to get into right now. But because of Mark, public employees across the country, including here in Alaska, Illinois, California, New York, and Michigan, still have that right. But the Supreme Court didn't stop there. They went further and they said that, by the way, in order to take money, you have to have what they said was evidence of affirmative consent. And not only that, but it has to be informed. So your former Attorney General, General Clarkson, who was assisted by the current Attorney General, General Taylor, they wrote an opinion and said, yeah, by the way, you can't have these dues checkoff forms that somebody may have signed at the beginning of their career 20 years ago, before the Supreme Court said, by the way, you don't have to pay full dues. And you can't say you can still take money from them if you're a government agency. You have to inform them they have the right to choose to pay or not. You have to give them an annual opportunity. Just like you opt in, you have open enrollment for health insurance, other things that are coming out of your paycheck. Same thing should be for union dues, because by the way, this is a constitutional right. And just like you have Miranda rights, once you get arrested, you get read your Miranda rights. It's not like those last forever. You have to be reminded. Those waivers of constitutional rights expire. And then you have to opt in. So that was the heart of what General Clarkson, followed up by now General Taylor, have said that's what the second part of the Janus decision means. Governor Dunleavy came and issued an administrative order to say, okay, state agencies, across the board, this is what we have to do. Yeah, unions weren't too happy with that. Shocking, they sued. So now it's been going through the Alaska court system, and they're right to where Mark was when he said, oh, this is over, what's happening? And then his attorney said, no, now we get to go to DC. So right now it's poised at the point where if General Taylor appeals, it can go to the Supreme Court. And if it goes to the Supreme Court, because of General Clarkson, General Taylor, Governor Dunleavy, because of Bethany's great work in Alaska Policy Forum, we could get the, yeah, we really mean it case, the Janus Part 2 case. By the way, Mark hates it when you say post-Janus, so don't do that, because he's alive and well. We checked out a glacier today, it was awesome. So Janus Part 2 case. But that can mean that public employees across the country not only have the rights that the original Janus decision, is original okay?
Yeah,
Good.
that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
That the original Janus decision handed down, but that they're informed of their rights. They can exercise them at any time. That they don't, waivers of those rights don't last forever. And that could be squarely because of the great work that's happened here in Alaska. So it is really cool to be here. So I don't know, Sean, if that answers your question,
Yeah.
but
I am cognizant of the fact that you have sunshine.
yes.
Something I'm very used to, having just come from Phoenix. But the thing that's different about Phoenix, because when you said, oh, we're going to get this done quickly so you have some time, I was thinking, wow, but it's going to get dark soon. No, it's not. In Phoenix isn't getting dark in the next hour, but it's a whole new world up here. One of the things that I wanted to just cover, and then you can ask any questions that come up at any point. But so, what is the process about opting out, and how does that process work? Every union is a little different. Every state's a little different. But generally, what we've done is we'll get in touch with somebody and say, you know, do you know that you have the freedom not to pay? You know, and we've used different messages for different types of union members. One of the things that we do is we'll make phone calls, we'll do digital ads, we'll send emails, and we'll just try to pick up what are the things that matter to them. One of the things that we know was for those who were really active and really opposed to the union, they were union members, but they were opposed to their union because they didn't like the policies that were going on. They were paying attention to Mark's case. And so as soon as that case came down, they opted out. So we had a big jump in people who opted out right after the case happened. But that was only a small number in compared to, per capita. So then it was the education effort of saying, okay, well, do you opt out because you want to save money, which you can, or because you don't agree with the politics of the union, or you're just completely not political at all, and you just like, I don't want to be involved in this. This is not what I'm here to teach kids, or I'm here to, process claims, whatever the case may be in your government work. So the process we used in California was multi-tiered, because one of the things that, a lot of people who were involved in this in helping with the Janus case were political people, right? So it's like, oh, this is just like a campaign. We'll just go tell them to opt out of the union. It'll be really easy. Just like, go vote for Jeff, Well, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm going to vote for Jeff, because there's literally no change in your life when you check a box or when you go and vote, right? Now, who you vote for could have some impact on your life down the road, But there's nothing that's happening at that day that says, oh, yeah, because it's a secret ballot, nobody knows. It is literally pain-free, right? But if you're gonna opt out of a union and you've got somebody standing over your shoulder, or you have the pressures of people who are like, I don't know if you should do that. What about liability? That kind of thing. It's a much more in-depth process. It's not a snap decision. And so it is, what we discovered was it'd be easy to just call and say, hey, did you know your rights? Oh, you didn't know you could opt out? Well, you can opt out. Good, opt out. They don't do that. So it's a conversation that just continues to go on and on. So the process that we've used in California includes the digital ads, the emails, the phone calls, and then we'll go knock on their door to answer any questions, to give them some comfort on this is the way to do it. And most importantly, and I think this is a part that Mark has been key in, is we get them connected to a buddy, somebody who has in their industry, if it's teacher, it's a teacher, who's opted out and says, hey, you can do that. And then we also provide them, one of the most important things that we discovered early on was that the union, one of the threats the union uses is, oh, well, if you opt out, you're not going to have liability insurance, and you get sued, and you're done. And so that was something that scared people. And the Association of American Educators creates a product. They have an insurance product that has been a great tool for us in helping people understand, oh, I'm going to be okay. If I opt out, I can join this association, and it's 10 or 15 bucks a month, which is significantly less than what they're paying in union dues, and they actually get better coverage, and they get free legal advice on any issues.
John, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
See, what a lot of teachers don't know is that the school district that they work for carries liability insurance for them, because it's also in the interest of the school district to protect their employees. And the alleged union insurance, liability insurance, doesn't kick in until the school district is exhausted, whatever the policy limits are there. And I say alleged coverage because if you actually read the union liability coverage policy, there are so many holes in it, it's like the windows in this building. You can drive a truck through it, which means that if she or he does need the coverage and needs the help, there's so many holes in it that many people find that they're not covered at all, even though they've been paying and paying and paying, and that's just the way the system is. And yet the union will say, oh, you're going to lose your liability. No, you're not. They also tell you that you're going to lose your pension. You're not, because that comes from your employer, not the union.
That's a great segue into our next video, where we're going to hear from an Alaskan school teacher who opted out and is going to share her experience with many of the same things that Mark just mentioned as far as benefits, and also what Sean just mentioned as far as having a buddy. So she's a school teacher retired now, school teacher at Green Valley, but she has opted out and is happy to talk to anyone else. So other folks who are interested in opting out, she's willing to connect with them so we can have buddies for folks as well. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and hear from Kathy McCollum.
My name is Kathy McCullum. I taught in the Matsu Borough School District for 31 years. I mostly taught first grade, some fourth grade, and I really enjoyed my job. I am currently retired. I decided to opt out of the union mainly because I didn't agree with the policies of NEA. Their political contributions didn't match what my beliefs were, and it just didn't seem right that I had to pay to a group in order to do the job that I really wanted to do. So I decided to look into opting out. Well, for a long time, I was not aware that there was anything I could do to disassociate myself from the union. I thought it was a requirement of my job, which it actually was. But I did find out at some point that I could receive my political portion of the union dues back. So my union dues at that time were about $1,000 a year. I found a form letter online and sent it in to my union president and the school district. and I was able to get back about $385 out of 1,000, which the NEA stated was the political portion of our dues. It was difficult at first because when I asked for help from our union president, he did not respond to my questions. So I had to do a lot of the research myself in order to even find out that this was a possibility to even get my money, just a small portion of my money back. So I did it, and I was really happy with myself that I was able to figure that part out, and I realized that most teachers didn't have any idea that that was even a possibility. We could get $19 of political action money back from our local teachers union, and a lot of teachers I knew did that, but we didn't realize that we were able to go further than that. So that was kind of a big step when we figured that out. So when I got my first check, the political refund, I showed a lot of my friends at work because we just didn't know that was possible. And so quite a few of my colleagues joined me in opting out. Many of them had to wait until the following year because there was such a small window for opting out of that political money. But I think it really caused a little bit of a stir because eventually about 10 to 12 teachers in my school had opted out of that political money. And I think it had gotten the attention of the union. So we had representatives from the union that would come to the school and walk around in the morning to talk to teachers about why they had opted out. They told many mistruths or untruths. They told them that they would not have liability insurance or liability coverage if they didn't belong to the teachers union, and that really frightened some of the newer teachers especially. Well, after I started receiving my political money back, I actually was not considered a member of the union anymore. I didn't have any voting privileges, but I still had to pay a good amount of money to the union for bargaining, is what they said. And so I was not happy about that still, but I did feel happy that I was receiving my political money back as I didn't believe in those causes that the NEA supported. And the rest of my job pretty much stayed the same. There was no change to my salary, no change to my benefits. I was happy in my job. And about 2 years before I retired, the Janus decision became final. And so all of us who had opted out of the political money actually became non-members of the union automatically. And so then we didn't have to pay any union dues. None of our benefits or salary changed. Most of us that had done this were so happy that we had done it. We did not receive a lot of retaliation from other teachers or the union. We had a really conservative school overall. So people just got along and everybody was happy about it. Then when I retired, there was no difference to my retirement benefits. There was no change really in my job or how I worked. So, you know, I don't think that opting out affects someone's retirement at all. In fact, I don't believe that it affects any portion of their job. You still do the job you want to do, you work hard, and that's what it's all about. If you're a teacher who doesn't agree with the union's policies and support for political activities, you can opt out. And I would say your best route would be to search out a place like Alaska Policy Forum for information, or go to optouttoday.com. That's a really great website. I've directed lots of friends there. It's simple, it's not as scary as you think it is. And if you're still a little worried, reach out to someone who has already opted out if you can find someone. And if you can't, someone like Alaska Policy Forum can help you out with that. It's not as hard or as scary as you think.
All right. So what the panel was saying earlier is absolutely accurate. There's a lot of folks who simply don't know that they are able to not pay dues to the union. We've had a variety of projects to try to address this in Alaska. One of those is we actually stood outside some government office buildings and passed out these little brochures that gave information, and then had a little postcard that they could just sign and mail in to say if they wanted to opt out of dues. But it's something that is a common misconception, is that if they do opt out, they're going to lose their benefits. And like I said, many don't even know that they can opt out. So I'd like to have the panel back up here now again to answer a few more questions. And the first one I'd like for you guys to address is, you heard Kathy say that one of the reasons that she opted out was because she didn't agree with the political messages and the political activity of her union, but there's lots of other reasons that people opt out. You see the title of this that we have is, "Isn't it about time to give yourself a raise?" So that's one of the reasons, right? It's just more money in your pocket. But could you guys address that question, please? Why do people opt out? What are some reasons?
Sure. Well, I'll start because I'm the least experienced in that regard, because Mark did opt out. I'm trying to. He's the ultimate opt out, right? But what we found is, and I mentioned this a little bit before, the raise, saving money is a great motivator, especially for teachers who generally don't make very much money. So, you know, an extra $1,000 a year in most cases, in most states, is significant. And especially as as they think about, they're going to save this year over year over year. But it also goes, that's exactly why the unions are so fearful, because that's $1,000 the unions are not getting year over year over year. So one of the things that we focus on is saying, because we don't want to ever make people think that we are, as Mark said, Mark's not an anti-union. We don't approach this as an anti-union message. This is a pro-worker freedom message. This is up to you. If you just want to stay in the union, great. But if you want to raise, you can opt out. If you don't agree with the politics, you can opt out. If you don't agree that there is anything about politics one way or the other, that's another reason that people opt out. Vinnie, one of the things I was going to also mention before the video is, Vinnie probably wrote a bunch of the briefs that amicus briefs that went before the show.
I only play a lawyer on TV, Sean. Sorry about that.
But in addition to the reasons that people opt out, what are the resources that they have? I mean, where are the places if they come in, if they get stuck?
Right. So so there's a lot of great groups out there. Up here, a lot of them are local, like Alaska Policy Forum, working with workers, working with you guys, the Mackinac Center, Liberty Justice Center provides a lot of good legal help. They represented Mark, and National Right to Work also provides legal assistance. We talked about AAE, the Association of American Educators, that provides liability insurance. So, and that's just scratching the surface. There's Freedom Foundation in Washington that provides a lot of services to the West Coast, Seattle, Washington, Oregon, California, and I know they're helping in other areas. So there's all of these groups out there across the country, between providing liability insurance, giving legal assistance, helping with opt-outs, that can assist workers. And honestly, Bethany is connected to all of them, and what all these groups do, and I work with all of them. I work directly for Mackinac, and obviously good partners with Liberty Justice Center and a lot of these other groups. And always want to make sure that it's the folks on the ground. They have the best finger on the pulse, and that's why we love working with Bethany. We love working with Alaska Policy Forum, and if I were a worker in Alaska, if I were a public employee and I wanted to get out and I was having problems, Alaska Policy Forum would be my first call. Because Bethany is connected. She knows who to call. She knows who to refer you to. And frankly, you guys have the expertise to, at first blush, really assist the public employees in getting over those first few hurdles. And hopefully it ends there and they're able to get out. So, short answer, call Bethany.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. Call our organization. So, Mark, you know that we were involved in another piece of litigation with some Alaskans who are not able to get out. And I think you had a chance to meet Linda Creed, the Liberty Justice representative.
Yeah, we did. Liberty Justice Center, who I now work for, who's the legal group of attorneys. They're a public interest law firm. They don't charge clients one dime to be represented. And, you know, Linda was having all kinds of issues of trying to get out. And, you know, I could go on for half an hour or more about all the trouble she had, but I kind of go back, you know, to what I said earlier. You know, why does she have so much trouble getting out? It's the Supreme Court decision. It's, you know, what the Supreme Court said, and why should there be such a difficult road to go down? And so we filed a case, and, you know, we were able to, you know, come to fruition, meaning that Linda was able to get out, and, you know, she got satisfaction. But it's not only Linda, there's a lot of others all across the country. And the question is, why do we have to file court cases to get people out of the union? Why do we have to go to litigation? It's not necessary. It shouldn't be, because the Supreme Court spoke and they made a decision, and that should be the end of it. But that's not the case. And so we continue to litigate to this day. In fact, I had one attorney tell me at an event I was at a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, he said, Mr. Janus, I want to thank you for all the work you're giving me. He said, I've got more billable hours now than I ever had.
All right, thanks very much. We have one more video. You guys have time for one more video, and then we'll open up to questions. So, another Alaskan telling us in their own words.
Hello everyone, my name is Todd Smolden, and first I'd like to thank the Alaskan Policy Forum for putting this event together. I think it's extremely important, and I'm happy to participate as somebody who has experienced this firsthand when it comes to choosing to not belong to a public employee union because of the Janus decision. I am not currently a teacher. I retired a couple of years ago, but I taught for 22 years, and I taught in the Anchorage School District East High School and also North Star Behavioral Hospital, my last 4 years of teaching. I found the process for opting out easy. I was told that what I needed to do was send a letter to the Anchorage Education Association, which I did, and then I also talked to the Human Resources Department at the district and told them that I was opting out. I did not do this at the beginning of the school year. I did it in, I believe, October, and in most cases, I believe that with the school districts, you can opt out at any time. So the union got that information. I made sure that the district was aware that I had sent a letter to the union, and I asked for them to stop subtracting union dues from my paycheck. I was actually quite surprised how the union reacted, or that there was very little reaction from my union when I submitted my letter to remove myself from the roles. Building rep did visit with me. I explained to them that because of the Janus decision and my frustration with the union's political action, that I did not want to be a member of the union. And so that was about the only reaction I got from the union. My wife, who is a current teacher, went back to teaching full-time and didn't join the union at all. And I think it's important for people to understand that there's very little reaction to that from her perspective. No one questions her about that. In fact, she often has conversations with colleagues who would like to do the same thing. And so if anything, I think she is an example for them on what is possible when you choose to opt out. If I was a teacher today considering opting out, I would say do it as quickly as you can. I found there was no real benefit of me being a union member, and in fact really only costs in terms of what was taken out of my salary, the fact that I couldn't negotiate for myself, and that my union was often promoting political activity and candidates with whom I greatly disagree. I know that there are fears out there about liability, wrongful accusations, things like that, but it's important for teachers to understand that districts have an incentive to protect their teachers legally when there is false accusation. The reason for that is the district is often involved in being sued just like the teacher is, and the reason why the district is always included is because they have the big pockets. So it's really in the district's best interest to protect their teachers and to support them when anything like that happens. Additionally, if you're really concerned about it, you can buy millions of dollars of liability insurance for far less than what it costs you in union dues.
All right. Big thanks to Sean and the folks here helping with the videos.
My name is Todd Smolden, and first
Helped us put the videos together. Both Kathy and Todd wish they could be here, but they're both out of state. Sorry they're missing the sunshine today. But they are strong supporters of this and would be happy to talk with anybody. So, all right, so if we can have the panel back up here one more time, we'll take questions from the audience.
I can't earn any of my paycheck unless you guys ask questions.
So what's it worth to?
That's a question. That's up to you.
All right. Ready? Yeah.
So what's one of the biggest drawbacks to getting the word out? I mean, most of us that are politically active, once the Janus decision was announced, we didn't stop jumping up and down for 2 days. But the rank and file person out there probably it just passed right over. So now it sounds like to me you're running a campaign just like we're running a political campaign. You're using digital ads, you're using all kinds of media. So is this a nationwide push, or I mean, how do we get the word out? I'm just as interested in seeing union membership being flushed down the drain as anybody else. So how do we get this word out?
Well, yeah, so I think that there's, we definitely have tools that can be used here. And there might have been some stuff we've done in Alaska digitally.
Oh, we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last
So you're doing it. And so...
Been fundraising for this.
Yeah, Bethany can speak to specifics of what's going on here. But I think it's really true that the vast majority of people don't really understand it. And I do think that in this moment, in 2018, talking about the First Amendment and freedom of speech, freedom of association was a big deal. But I think it's even more poignant now. And so I think that we have a situation culturally where we can say, hey, we talk about free speech and censorship and those kinds of things, but guess what? This decision in 2018 is the ultimate free speech decision because it is, or the First Amendment decision, free speech and First Amendment, because the right association, right for union members to say, I don't agree with what this union is doing and I'm not going to participate. And so I think there's a way to utilize current events as a hook to get them to think about something that, oh, that was a while ago, but it is just as relevant, if not more so today than it was in 2018.
So Alaska's a fertile field. I mean, half of Alaska's probably employed. I mean, you take military.
Yeah, it is fertile, although to Bethany's credit and Carmela, I mean, you guys have done a great job. Alaska is actually one of the top states that, from a percentage-wise, the members have opted out. Yeah, so whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But you're right, you can do more because it's when I say top states, the average is 10 to 15%. Alaska's in the 25%. We've got that in California, but we've spent millions of dollars have been spent in California. So it takes a lot of it takes a lot to educate people on this. It's not, just as it, you see campaigns spend millions of dollars on educating our candidates, that kind of issues. You have to figure out a way to cut through. So that's why I'm saying use that hook of the cultural moment that we're in, current events, to
This is the 5-year anniversary of Janus too, so that can be a.
yeah. Good point.
Thanks, Ron.
I'm not sure which one of you would fill this question is, but I've been in the private sector my whole career, and so I've never ran up against some of these mandates that appear to be kind of really in the face of a lot of public sector employees. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like there's a lot of deceptive practices that have been applied over the years to employees that have participated in, maybe unknowingly, but certainly there was pressure if there was any tendency to not, or to even question, where could this go in the sense of reparations for people that were paying without their interests being properly represented and their will being properly vetted?
Yeah, I think the
I
first.
don't know if that's even a question that's viable, but it's just on my mind.
Well, it's one that unions are scared to death about. The idea of refunding back dues.
Yeah.
That scares the crap out
Well,
of me.
in my particular case, when we filed our original case, we told the union, as part of our case, to put my dues or my agency fee into escrow. And if I won, I would get it back. If I lost, they could keep it. We won, they kept it. And we went back to court to try to get it, and the courts wouldn't, it went back all the way up to the Supreme Court to try to get those dues back from the time we filed until the time we won. And the court didn't agree with that. They agreed not to hear the case and what it boiled down to.
Just as a follow-up, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do know there was a class action filed, and I don't know, but there were Alaskans involved in this class action about getting dues back. So, I mean, do you know that, I know it didn't succeed, that's all I really know, but if you know any more details, do share. But
Yeah.
I think you were originally one of the plaintiffs in that class action, weren't you? Yes, so she was one of the plaintiffs.
And I'm not exactly, privy. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't explain the legal basis for why it never won. But there were quite a few cases. I mean, Liberty Justice Center, we had over a dozen or more that, that we tried to, get people their money back because they were kept deceptively collecting the money, even after they asked to be out of the union.
Let's see if Vinnie has any insight into that.
Yeah, so the shorthand for it is clawback. So these were clawback cases. They were brought all over the country, and it was exactly like you said. Statute of limitations, look back. We've paid dues. We had a First Amendment right not to pay dues. It's not like a statute was passed, so we've always had these First Amendment rights. So therefore, we should get our money back. Those cases up till now have been unsuccessful. They've gone up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has denied what's known as denied cert or certiorari, so they said, we're not hearing those cases. So right now, all of those cases have been unsuccessful. But I think where a lot of the focus should go, where it is going, is really what's happening here in Alaska with the cases, the Attorney General opinions, the administrative orders, the opt-in. It's and that is really important. It's because of you get a stack of paperwork this high. The first day you get a job. I mean, everybody does this. Okay, sign. You don't realize, I just signed union dues, and I'm going to be paying $100 a month or so, depending on the union, because it's just a stack of papers. And by the way, if you were in a state like Alaska or Illinois before Mark's case, there was nothing saying, by the way, this is voluntary. It's you pay 100% or you pay 80%, but you're going to pay us no matter what. So somebody that signed that form 20 years ago could have no idea that Mark Janus was going to win a case at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was going to say, yeah, by the way, you have a First Amendment right not to pay. So right now, the main priority is making sure that all of those forms now say in big font, you have a First Amendment right, you do not have to pay. And by the way, if you do not sign something that in big font, 14 points says, by the way, you have a First Amendment right, you can choose to pay or not, that is null and void. And that's the case that is going to hopefully go to the Supreme Court, and that's what we were talking about. We're going to get the Janus Part 2, or the son of Janus case, where there is that out there. You like Part 2? Okay. The Janus Jr. case, I guess, is that if that works.
So,
No,
yeah.
go ahead, I have the questions.
Well, just as a follow-up to that other question, and you kind of indicated the importance of this opt-in. In my, I guess, processing of how this has even gone on for so long, it seems like the only corrective course that would actually protect the interests of these unions, public sector unions that want to stay kind of on safe ground, would be they have to shift to an opt-in option. Because if they stay in any form of this, where it would be an opt-out only option, it's just in common sense to me says they're going to face the backlash of payback. And they're going to, I don't see how it could not end up that way.
And that is the heart of the Attorney General opinions and the gubernatorial administrative order, that it is an opt-in. And it's not just an opt-in, it's a yearly opt-in after being informed of the rights, and they can get out at any time. You were asking about what else the unions are doing. And there's shenanigans all over the country. We've seen California, Illinois, New York, your usual suspects, and then some. And I'll tell you a little bit about what those are and why opt-in is so important. First one, they're mandating a thing called windows. And I know we briefly touched on what a window is, but essentially it's saying that you have maybe 2 weeks or a month every year to exercise your rights. And if you miss that window, you gotta wait another year. And by the way, you can't just say the day after, yeah, I want to opt out, and then that's gonna take effect. A lot of places say, no, you have to opt out within that time period. And now for teachers, it's usually okay. Usually it's like during the month of August, it's standard. But for most like state and other local public employees, it's, usually written something like, not 10 days after or 30 days prior the anniversary date of your hire. So, first full moon after the vernal equinox is the only time you can exercise your rights. So this is why in the administrative order it said, no, they should be able to get out at any time. The other things that we've seen are a thing called captive audience meetings. So essentially we've seen a lot of states say that as soon as an employee gets hired, a union is entitled to 15, 30 minutes, an hour with them basically to do the union sales pitch. I want you to think a timeshare presentation on steroids. And this is what these public employees have to endure just to get their job, with the union saying, no, you must sign this, here's all the reasons why you need to sign this, and essentially putting the pressure very heavily on. And what we've also seen, because we've had some people in the room in some certain states, where they start bad-mouthing organizations like Alaska Policy Forum, like Freedom Foundation. In fact, I think it was in either Washington or California, where a big part of the presentation was, don't listen to these guys, meaning the Freedom Foundation, which is doing similar work to what Alaska Policy Forum is doing. I'm sorry, Bethany, go ahead.
No, he actually asked one of the questions I was going to say. John?
Yeah, I had once a suggestion, once a question. And I listened to all of y'all, and you gave the reasons as to why people want to opt out. But the decision itself doesn't require any reason to be given. They just may not care to be a member of the union, and they can opt out as no reason given whatsoever. You don't have to prove a reason to be getting out. But the question to you is, the second part of the Janus decision, informed consent. And I'm very familiar with administrative law and the whole process that followed. And it was done with expectation it would be resolved at the Supreme Court level. There was never any expectation other than that. But what are we doing, and what is being done, I shouldn't say so, what is being done to expand that informed consent? Because therein lies the real key if you want to put pressure on the bargaining units. Therein is where you do it.
So, we've seen Attorney General orders from several states. We've seen it here in Alaska, in Indiana, in Texas. We've seen the administrative order. Here in Alaska, we've seen the Michigan Civil Service Commission do this administratively. Now the shift, as these cases are going through the court system, we're seeing more and more state legislation on this. So Indiana basically passed a law doing the exact same thing as the administrative order here in Alaska. Other states are just saying, you know what, we don't want to be in the business of collecting union dues. So going back to you don't need a reason, Florida just passed a bill. It was a big omnibus bill, big victory, saying that workers get a right to recertify or actually have an election on the union itself if membership drops below 50%, that there is that opt-in, that unions would get audited. But one of the interesting things, in addition to saying that these dues checkoff forms, you have to be informed of your rights, the state of Florida wishes to make you aware of your First Amendment right, there was another clause that in the legislation specifically said what you were just talking about, that you cannot ask a reason. Because there were Florida unions saying, you must give us a reason. And there was other unions across the country saying that, if you want to opt out, you have to check all these boxes. I don't care about kids. Unions are the ones that are protecting our schools. I am going to jeopardize this ridiculous list of, yes, I am aware I'm, betraying God and country and apple pie in order to say, exercise my First Amendment rights. So the Florida legislation did exactly what you were talking about, saying, no, you can't ask for a reason.
Well, and as a further follow-up, what we're finding is the union is just plain ignoring the decision. Mm-hmm. They kind of feel that they're above the law in some sense, and they feel that even though there has been this decision and there is law, they don't have to follow it. And if I don't follow it, then come sue me, is kind of somewhat their attitude. Not in all cases, but some.
All right.
This is more comments than anything else.
Yeah,
It's
I'll tell you
clarifying.
what, if you guys might stick around, we can do some questions.
Yeah, do questions outside, Bethany, get some sunshine.
Yeah, we'll go wrap it up though, because we told you an hour, so we'll keep it to that. So thank you guys very much. And if you have any questions or need anything, we've got, again, lots of great information over there. Feel free to share it with others, but also feel free to reach out to us. So thank you so much.
You're good. Thank you, my fellow Alaskans, for being here today. Don't forget to like and share. You can find this on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and on Rumble, all live. They're all there right now. You can rewatch this anytime you want. Know anybody in the unions, please send them that way. Always help us out. Go to our website at politadick.com and click that support button. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. You guys all have yourself a great evening.